much the way that eye alignment works is if we line up both of our right eyes, so you can line it up with my mask and we extend. Okay, these have a straight path to each other, right? But this has to travel all the way across my body, which is time. If we're equal eye aligned, then now even if I have a dagger here, my dagger has the quickest route to your sword and my sword has to travel across my body. If we're left eye aligned, now my dagger has the quickest route, and now if I want to take your sword with this sword, I got to travel across my body and yours, right? Which takes time. So what this leads into is if I want to take your sword with my main sword, it's faster for me to be right eye aligned to do it, because this one has to travel this distance. Same with if we're right eye aligned and you attack me, I should be parrying with the closest prepared weapon, which is this one. Now, if we're equal eye aligned, I'm going to be doing most of the stuff with my offhand weapon to your sword because it's the faster one. This has to travel across my body to take it, when this can just be straight. And then, like I'd said before, when we're
left eye aligned,
now what's happening is the sword has to come over twice. Now you have eye alignment of body and of sword. So what I mean by that is our bodies are left eye aligned. Right now, I could also left eye align my right sword. So now to take your weapon, I don't have to travel across my body. I just have to travel across yours. But now if your sword is also over here, then I have a quick route right here. So usually, my positioning, I try to have both covering that side. If I'm right eye aligned, both my weapons are right eye aligned. So they can both get there like pretty quickly. Now the other thing that helps on eye alignment is everybody knows what it's seeking an angle is in fencing, right? It's in everything where it's like, if I step to the side, boom, I have more targets on you, right? And you have less on me. And now you have to turn to fight me, okay? Everyone knows this. But a big issue that people are having is they're not taking into consideration what their opponent is best with and what they're best with. So what I mean by that is if you're better, say like Isaac is a fucking monster with his sword, right? So if he has better sword work than me, and if I have better dagger work than him, if I'm fighting him right eye line, sword to sword, I'm at a disadvantage because he's better than me here, right? So I want to avoid right eye line. So what I would do is say this happened to be my best parry, and I'm just using like examples whether or not they're true. If this happens to be my best parry and that happens to be your worst parry, then I want to stay left eye line because now you're attacking into my best parry and I'm attacking into your worst parry. Does that make sense? So whenever most people are seeking an angle or stepping, they don't realize they could be stepping at an angle that's bad for them because they could be stepping into what the opponent's best at. So whenever you take your footsteps, and we do it with just keeping eye alignment. So you always want to only step for a certain purpose. So right now, if we're right eye aligned, okay, and the reason why our school has a style called shadow of attrition is because you're shadowing your opponent and you're fighting them through like a war of attrition. So right now, if our right eyes are aligned, okay, take any step you want, and I'm just going to keep eye alignment, okay? Right, and so I could do this having a conversation, keeping the distance, keeping the eye alignment easily so that you can never gain that advantage point that you want for your eye alignment, right? So this way, I'm always attacking into what your weakest parry is or wherever I want. So now you're going to do it. I'm going to keep right eye aligned. When I step that way, you step that way. When I step that way, you step that way. Now this is different than what most people train. Most people train if I step that way, you step that way. I'll show you why that's bad. If I step that way and you step that way, you've created a bigger pocket right here that I can wind around. So instead, you're going to line our right eyes and you're going to mirror every one of my steps. And you can do this without thinking. It's really easy. Now I can't gain position, and even when I do a stutter step, now you're back where you need to be, right? So it's really easy to keep positioning and wherever you want, even when they start trying to juke you. Okay? So now not only are we doing that, what we're also doing is first I have to figure out what your worst or your best parry is, right? So the way I start my fight is I'm already coming into range with an idea of what eye alignment I want based on your stance or what master you study. So depending on how you hold your sword or how you stance up is going to tell me what direction you're going to go, whether you're good at cuts, whether you're good at disengages, because every way that someone grips the sword has an advantage and disadvantage, right? So like, say, single finger grip, it's good for mobility and cuts. The tip control's all right, but two finger grip may be stronger in the bind, but you lose your cuts, right? Or you have thumb grips, which have really fast disengages, but not as strong in the bind, okay? So I'm gonna look at someone's stance, And that's already going to tell me what parry they're probably going to do, because it's going to tell me what master they do, which tells me what concepts they're going to use. So I know what to avoid because I know what they're going to be good at. So say someone's like this is like a Capoferro fencer. I know that they want to do this parry and fight me down the line. So I'm going to avoid that, because if they've done Capoferro for 30 years and I don't let them use their Capoferro, then their experience level has now been brought down to mine, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. So what I'll do is, once the fight starts, I'll attack each one of your zones. And in our school, we have 5 zones. First zone, second zone, third, fourth, and fifth. Okay, and so I'll attack your first zone and you'll parry. I'll see how you parried. I'll attack this zone. I'll see how you parried. I'll attack here. I'll see how you parried. I'll attack here. See how you parried. Then I'll attack the center and see how you parried. Okay, so that gave me a ton of information, because most people always parry the zone the same. So now what I'm going to do is I need to adjust for your parry. Instead of hoping that you don't get the parry, instead I'm going to adjust for it. I'll show you an example. So say you put your cane down. And just for sake of example, if I'm going to attack right here and you're going to parry the inside with your sword. Okay, so say I throw this and you parry. I'm going to register the exact distance over that you parried, because just like shooting darts or anything in the wind, you got to compensate for the parry so it goes to the target, right? Or you got to compensate for the wind. So if I aim at your chest and you parry, I know it's not going to hit you. So I'm not going to aim at your chest. Instead, I'm going to aim to the side, and I'm going to step to the side. So when I go here, you push it into yourself, right? So what I've done is I've assessed all your parries, I've memorized the distance, and I memorized the speed of the parry. So now what I do is, while I'm assessing, okay, so while I'm throwing these assessments, if I can land them, I will. But I'm throwing them at a slower and shorter than what I normally would. So that now, by the time I want to throw my real attack, I throw it at true speed and true range. So not only have I been able to assess the opponent, I've also lied to them about what I'm good at. So while keeping the advantageous and the eye alignment, I've like assessed them so I know where I want to stay. And then on top of that, what I try and do is get them into a certain place in the arena. Because if we're both in the center, we have unlimited possibilities on places we could go, right? But if, say, the arena ends here, and I'm standing here, if you step right there, you step right into my sword. You close range on yourself. If you come forward, I'll hit you in tempo. So your logical place to go is that place, okay? And so this is what I call like advantageous board control. But that's not good enough. Because what if I gained advantageous board control, but what if that was your best parry and this was my worst parry? Well, now I've limited your options, but they're your best options. So that's not good enough, right? So now what we want to do is we want to add in that advantageous angle we were talking about with our advantageous board control for an overall advantageous position. So what I need to do is I'm going to get you there. I'm going to limit your options, and I want your options to be your worst options. Say that's your worst parry and this is my best. Now, the only option you have is your shittiest into my best as well. But that's not good enough, right? So now what I need to do is force you into the movement so I can also hit you in tempo. And if I feint you, you'll have even more distance to travel into your worst parry. So an example would be, say I've gotten you into this ring, and I got you here because I was assessing while working you into the ring, keeping eye alignment so that you couldn't get out of it and you're always attacking to what I want. Then I might throw a cut right here so you step over there and maybe down parry, and then I go into the real attack, which is also your worst parry. So we call this complete obedience. So I've limited your options on the board to your worst options, then I force you into the worst options and then hit you in the middle of it while feigning you so your worst option also has the most amount of distance to travel. Does that make sense? So that's kind of one of the things that we do here, and that's what we call complete obedience, and that's kind of like what we work for at the school. But so it wasn't necessarily that you were doing stuff wrong because you were doing the proper parries. It's just what we try to teach at the school is instead of hoping they parry wrong, we just get them to do the right movement, and we pre-adjust it for the correct movement. And then we don't let them do what they're best at. So like I've been fencing about the same time as you. I started at 5 years, but I had torn my ACL and stuff for like the first year. And the reason why I've been able to win so many tournaments against like a lot of the high-ranked Tigers or whatever, like we just won all the tournaments at Great Western War. But one of the main reasons why we do this is because based on how someone stances up, they've already told me what they're going to do, and then I just don't let them do it. And I'll just pick a better place for me to be. So it's like the benefits with thumb grip versus single finger grip. So one of the things I like about thumb grip is say if I attack and you do this parry with your arm. If I'm in single finger, okay, this movement can kind of actually be clumsy. But if I'm in thumb grip and I go here, I just drop down and go in, right? So I know that if you're using thumb grip and I go to game over your weapon, that you have a really quick disengage. So I'm just going to avoid that, right? I'm not going to necessarily be trying to bind with your blade. Instead, I'm going to gain over your blade so you disengage, and then I'm going to try and hit you in the middle of it while stepping to the side that's also going to nullify your other weapon. Now, on the next example of, go ahead and grab your stick now, and this will be like the last thing I cover, and then you can fight more. So on the next example of eye alignment is there's 4 stages of it. The first stage is eye alignment defensively, where I'm going to be at so that you're attacking into my strengths, whether I want you to attack into my sword or whatnot. Now, say you're in guard, okay? Now, if I want to use my offhand, I need to change eye alignment to make it faster. So if I want to use this, I'm going to step to equal eye alignment because it's going to speed up the movement. Not only that, if I move my arm, right? So say I want to go over there. If I move my arm, it creates an opening. If I move my body, then my guard does not create any new opening. So everything I'm doing, I'm trying to do through positioning. That way I don't create an opening with my hand. So if I'm right eye aligned and I want to use my offhand, I'm going to step to equal eye line. So this is the second stage of eye alignment. The stage where, depending on which weapon I want to take with, is going to depend on the eye alignment I want to be in. But now that I'm here, this weapon has the closest route to taking my sword, doesn't it? So I need to make that travel the next farthest path, so I'm going to change my eye alignment again. So now what's going to happen is you're having to parry it, plus I'm going to adjust for it by throwing it palm up so you guide it into yourself. Then I'm going to get back to the eye alignment that's safe for me. So you're going to keep your main eye alignment, depending on which weapon you want to take, which is going to depend on your next eye alignment. And then to avoid their other weapon, you're going to change your eye alignment again. So it looks like a lot of us are doing stutter steps, but they're actually eye alignment changes. Example is if we're here, okay, I go here, and then I go here, and then I go here. But it looks like I'm just stutter stepping, but I'm actually quickening my weapons pretty much, if that makes sense. So go ahead and try it. So say you're right eye aligned and you want to use your cane. Okay, so now you're going to take with your cane and you're going to change eye alignments. You're going to go to equal eye alignment to make it quicker. Now what's also good here is your body is pushing my sword out of the way instead of your hand. So you're strong and you didn't create any new opening and now you have both lines closed. Now you know this is the threat to this, so you need to change eye alignment to make this travel distance. So now you're going to go back to right eye alignment while trying to hit me. Boom, okay? And now you're safe here and you've saved yourself time. And the other thing is if I'm profiled, what's also happened is now you've gotten closer to the target instead of attacking the farther away target. So you can use eye alignment depending on like if you're mirroring someone's step, right? And I'm mirroring your steps. And I know that once we've stepped this way, when you go to step this way, if I'm already attacking there and stepping there, you're going to step into my blade. And they're not going to compensate for the two objects getting closer in time, which also seems like a faster reaction. Does that make sense? So a lot of our school is based on positioning. It's like all about like being in the right place with our feet to save time with our sword. And then the other things we teach is we don't teach one guard. Our guard is whatever the counter guard is to the opponent's guard while being at advantageous angle. Because say I have like a huge chest and I'm not good at the cross parry and this is the logical counter guard, right? But I can't get over there. All the other systems are, no, this is the right counter guard. This is what you should do. But if it's not good for my body, it's not proper. So instead, I'm going to position myself in a better way that's good for my body and still be in the counter guard. And I'm gaining this position usually while I'm outside of range as well. So that's kind of like, it wasn't necessarily that you did anything wrong, really. It's just that, but the other thing is, so I've been lying to you, right, while I get into range. Well, now, if I hit you with a max range attack, the next thing I'm going to do is lie about my distance to trick you so that you don't know my max range. So say it's like right here, you feel threatened. If I step back to here, you still feel threatened, right? But if I go here and I step back to here, you don't feel as threatened. But the range never really changed. So another thing I'll do with my feet is like do crescent switches. So like right here, I can't hit you, but if I replace my feet, right now I can. So I'll go here where I'm out of range, and then I'll switch my feet and then thrust because the distance has changed essentially. So an example is if you main your sword, and I always say like someone usually mains sword or mains dagger. Like people that fight like right here, they're obviously maining their dagger, right? So I'm gonna fucking avoid their dagger and I'm just gonna keep fucking with their sword. But say if you main your sword, okay, and we're right eye aligned, not a good place. Equal eye aligned, your sword comes over to continue to cover the line a lot. Now, when I'm left eye aligned, usually most people will cover with their hand or their body right there. Like, no, don't worry about changing. So say you cover with your body or with your hand, with your sword, right? That's creating a pocket right here. Now, most of the time what will happen is when I take that step, they'll finally compensate by going that way. But what happens when I take that step is their sword will continue that way and they'll still have the hole. So when I take this step and you go there, I switch back to my eye alignment and hit the new hole. So what this means is, so I'm right eye aligned, I step here, you cover with body, okay, and then when I step again and you go to step, I fake. So then now that hole is still there, all your energy's going that way, and now I have the quicker route. So that's another thing that really helps with the eye alignment is just, so what I did against Todd is imagine if you had a buckler in that hand, and I have my second sword. The buckler was the problem because he's really fucking good with his buckler. So what I did was I fought left foot forward with my left hand and I kept prying over here so he'd bring his buckler over. So he's covering both lines like this, okay? And I kept prying. Then what I did was I switched my feet and switched my eye alignment and came up and over the buckler and cut to the arm. So I had to work to get him to create the opening for the weapon I wanted to hit and then switch and then go over and get the cut. So if you're fighting someone and one of their weapons is giving you a problem, or you're like, fuck, I can't get through this parry of theirs, or I can't get through their sword, a lot of people will just keep trying, right? Just either one, will avoid it, or two, make it travel the most distance and take it away so they can't keep screwing you over with it. So say another example is there's a really good fighter named Tora. And he fights in a low guard, okay, with his sword down here and his dagger out here. Okay, so go ahead and get in his stance. You're like this, okay? Now, most people are in mid guard, and what's happening here is when they're fighting in equal eye alignment, his best take is this with the dagger, so it's really quick. Now, him being in low guard and me being in mid guard, my dagger take, even though we're equal eye alignment, has a further distance to travel because his sword's slower, and I'm feeding into his best parry. So based on how someone fights, fighting in equal eye alignment is a horrible idea because now I'm feeding into his best parry. It's shortening the time. And then this used to be my worst parry, so that's where he would attack me and it wouldn't end well. So what I started having to do was I would fight left eye alignment or right eye alignment because now I can go into this parry or this one and he's feeding into my best parry. Or I fight right eye alignment, and if he's in low guard, I actually have the quicker route to his body, and his dagger has to come over, and he can't really even do that dagger take. So I'm forcing him to parry with his sword. So then all I got to do is go up, and he goes to parry with the sword. Now I go to the leg because the dagger can't get down to the leg quick enough. Does that make sense? All right, that's the last thing.